That was a Coke, by the way, not a beer.
Whatever.
We don't judge here.
or whatever's in a Coke can.
We live in unprecedented times, Ken.
I understand. Very much.
Hey, you got a new member of the CROA board, I see.
Who's that?
Which one?
His name there, Kay Lee. I think I know that guy.
That's a voice. That's a voice from my past. Who is that?
Yeah.
Oh, the Wisconsin accent. There we go.
All right, I'm going back on mute. I'm not talking.
There's been enough complaints on Facebook that we needed a new guy to blame.
There we go.
Okay, fresh meat.
Fresh meat.
Well, on that note, we'll let the fighting officially begin. Then, how's that? It is now 10:01. And let's just vote for some nice peace and calm and tranquility instead of battle. We'll be much better then. Thank you very much, Steve, for the old Zen mode.
Yeah.
So I will call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved, David.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Debbie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Perfect. Thank you. So just for some people may be new onto the Zoom Friday calls, we, unlike the regular board meetings where we have public comment at the beginning, we open it up at topics. So if there's somebody that likes to speak or would like to speak, again, we still ask that you keep it to under 3 minutes, and understand if you, the board will be speaking first prior to opening it up to residents. So thank you so much. And on that note, Steve, management update on facilities opening.
Thank you, Vanessa, and good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It was a really quiet week this week when it comes to facility usage, but the one item I do want to bring up for the board to discuss is we have been getting reports on the gym. We have a monitor that goes and checks in the reservations, because the gym right now is on reservation only, so we have a monitor that goes and checks in. But when the monitor leaves to go somewhere else, it seems like there's some shenanigans going on where people that aren't reserved are going in. So we have one person that's been reporting this to us, and we go back out and we check when it's reported. But we just want to see what the temperature is with the board. I don't think that it's reached a level of us recommending closing down, but I want to make sure everybody's still comfortable with the usage of the gym.
Well, when you say people are going in without a reservation, does that mean 27 people are going in, or a couple of people are going in and there's good distancing, safe practice going on?
Yeah, I think it's sporadic and just a couple people, and there's still the distancing going on. We haven't gotten reports of that at this point in time, but it's just apparently they're not reserved at that time and they're going in and using it.
And we have video of the gym, right?
We do. I haven't been through all the video footage though, just from talking to the monitor that is going out there, and then Cameron, who's our recreation coordinator, he's going out also in between the monitors, and I haven't seen it become a major problem yet.
Eu não consigo tirar. Como é que eu tiro?
Somebody's not on mute. But if we can, as long as we can say that it's still safe and we have the ability to watch it, then it doesn't bother me. Yes, we have rule breakers, I get it, but we have protests going on everywhere, so this is a small one.
Yeah, and we actually haven't seen the rule breakers there, so they're leaving before we get back. But if we see them and we get their information, I'll certainly be calling them and letting them know that if they continue to break the rules, they could lose their privilege to use the facilities.
I guess if we have complaints, and I think just for those of you who the residents that are on, anytime we receive a complaint, we usually will ask management to go ahead and review the video footage. In this particular situation, though, I mean, it's a lot of video footage. So if there is a problem, we need to know a specific time and date that the problem is, so we can actually backtrack and look at the video footage if it's a repeated issue. Any other board comments regarding this?
We also have the capability with the key card system to identify which key card was used at the approximate time.
Patrick, that's a technology question for you.
Yes, we do.
So you can cross-check key cards with those who have reserved and do an outreach to those who used it without having a reservation to remind them of what the policy is?
Yes, we can. If we identify who that individual is, we can definitely reach out to them.
Or which card,
Yes, I think that-
and maybe a family card. I mean,
Yeah, and that goes back to Vanessa's statement that if we know the exact time, then
Right,
that makes
right.
it a lot easier for us, and
Right,
instead of spending hours digging through that information.
exactly.
Any other board comments? Then I think it's fair to say that we'll continue as we are. If there is a resident that has an issue, specific time and date would be helpful in identifying any issues so we can backtrack with video. As of now, the board seems to be fine with keeping things where they're at and not modifying the process. However, if there isn't a blatant abuse, we can just shut the facility down. I mean, it's not what we want to do. We don't want to, stop one particular, for one particular situation. So any other comments? Steve?
So that's all that I have this morning for the update on facility opening. Like I said, it was a pretty calm week this week. We started off with a little bit of tropical storm rain, so not a lot of the facilities were used earlier in the week.
Very good. Then on that note, we move on to recycling.
I'm going to turn it over to Ken Lee. Ken Lee is with Celebration Sanitation, and he is going to talk to us a little bit about the Clean Stream initiative. And if Patrick, you can put the summary up on the screen, and then Ken can talk to these points. So here's Ken Lee.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm just going to kind of go over this summary kind of quickly, but not too quick. The recycling is still contaminated, without a doubt. We're probably running around somewhere around the 60 to 70% contamination rate on our recycling at the moment. It seems like a high number, but it's not that every week. It kind of varies from week to week, just how dirty it is for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it's an ongoing problem. For us to get our hands around this situation, we're going to have to do something where everybody's involved, the whole community is involved, because I think that's going to be the only way that we're going to be able to really wrap our hands around this situation, this issue that we got going on. A couple of months ago, I know I put that out there on the back porch, and I pulled it down because I should have probably waited on you guys to do this. And Steve caught me out on this, and thank you, Steve, for doing that, because I was gung-ho, I was ready to go and get this thing going, but then all this stuff happened.
Not sure if you want.
But neither here or there. There's 5 points that I want to go through, and these 5 points right here, I think will kind of get us to where we need to be. Of course, I'm not setting a timetable to start this whole process, but want to get your input on just how you guys want to go about this. The number one, awareness. I think we need to let everybody know why we're doing this and what the problem is, because a lot of people really don't understand what's happening with the recycling. Of course, they put it at the curb or the alleyway, and it's gone. That's all they really care about. But I think the awareness needs to kind of sink in with everybody, and as to why we're doing it. I think that's going to be the very first step. And I think doing some workshops and doing some different things with JR, maybe a video, like we talked about before, kind of putting a video out there, and with even if I have to actually bring the material and just say, recycle this, recycle this, recycle this, recycle this. Don't put this in there. Are you agree with that? Is that something that maybe we can do?
Ken, one of the things I struggle with recycling is I don't even think people understand what they should or shouldn't recycle.
Correct.
You have people, I mean, I've got a son that lives in Manhattan. I got a daughter that lives in Baltimore County. We live here. Everybody thinks you can recycle A, B, C, D, and we can do this here, and we didn't do it here. And when you use the word contamination, I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not even sure I know what contamination means.
Right.
And then when you say it's contaminated, what is contaminated, and is that good or bad? I mean, and so I very much agree with education because I'm on the CROA board and I don't know most of the things that I just honestly answered. So I would love videos and stuff like that. I think we really got to educate people. And I would even go one step back. You know, we're spending $800,000 on trash and recycling. It is a direct charge through to residents. So I think there'd be a lot of value in almost starting our education in this is how much every home is paying. And if we do this wrong, it's just coming right out of your pocket. And then I think we got to have a lot of education. But I think our education is, I think the rules are so misunderstood that it's a problem.
I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of, I wish there was a way that everything was done across the board the same way, across the entire country. That would be awesome. It would be very easy to do that. But it seems as they just kind of, depending on where you live, whether you live in Los Angeles or Portland or Orlando, the way that the recyclers, like Recycle America is our recycler, depending on where you're at is what they take. And I think that's driven by market, if you want to probably know the truth as far as what's what and what's not. But yeah, there's a lot of misconception on the recycling part as far as, you know, we do it like this over here, and I don't understand why you do it like this here. Well, of course, it's out of our control. I mean, it's all up to the recyclers that actually accept all the recycling.
Well, can we set a very crystal clear rule as to what we recycle? Like we only recycle tin cans and corrugated cardboard or something like that? Because I struggle when we tell people we'll do #2 plastic, but we won't do #4 plastic. I think we're setting ourselves up for an impossibility. So I'm wondering if we can set clear rules that help us.
Yes. I agree with all that, this is David, I agree with all that Brian is saying. But I think when I step back, there's two larger issues. One is, and you've alluded to this, there's different standards with different communities. You know, Brian mentioned New York City and Baltimore County. There's different standards in different communities. So part of the education is, as Brian is saying, what are the standards today? And then the other part is, why are these standards? So this is what we live with. So another part of that whole thing with standards is that these are changing. So there is some evolution. But the other big picture for me is one of trust. There's so much, if you will, public attention that says, well, it doesn't go anywhere anyway. All that happened, this is the word, you know, all of this recycling just goes into trash anyway. So for our community and our particular protocol, we need whatever the truth is and say, in this community, you know, here is, I mean, and let's acknowledge that, you know, many people believe it goes nowhere, but where does it really go? And just tell the truth, what and why, and try to build that trust locally so that we can get to the compliance rate that you are seeking, Ken. So I think both of those, as part of education, I'm a full supporter of that, public awareness, but I think this educated community also deserves the why. The why. That's echoing with someone. I don't know where that's coming from.
Somebody just fixed it. Diana, I see your hand up.
Way to emphasize your point there with the echo, David.
All right, great.
Diana, you're on.
He's like the wise Oz now. The why.
Yeah, I want to learn how you did that, David. That's perfect.
I can't repeat it, so whatever.
Hey,
It wasn't me. I'm on headphones.
my suggestion here is, I totally agree. Education is not good. I try to recycle stuff and my husband pulls it out and says, no, you're not allowed to do that. So I don't understand it either. But wouldn't this be a great opportunity to pull together some of the, the middle schoolers, the high schoolers that need volunteer hours, and make this a project where they could be the committee, because recycling is, something that they, that's something they can embrace and educate the town, and something that we could pull together and make this a real positive, along with the financial acumen of, hey, this is costing everyone money. This is why we've got to get it right. I think we need a committee pulled together, or a team of people that can work with Ken to make this happen, because we are going to have to educate all 4,321 homes, because no one understands it correctly.
And it's growing. And if I remember correctly, Kevin, I think you are the liaison for recycling. Am I accurate or not? I see a head shaking. Yes.
You are accurate. So I'm happy that this conversation, Ken, thank you for everything that you have been doing and everything you've done for the community. I know that this is a conversation we really needed to have earlier this year. I'm sorry I got kicked off with our lovely Wi-Fi, so I missed the very beginning part of what you said, but I believe I understand the gist of it, if you will. I kind of back what Diana just mentioned, and that's my thought, is to go ahead and get a task force going. My other half, in his job once upon a time, was in charge of taking over, taking over many of the waste management and recycling in one of the theme parks here in Orlando, and really turned quite a lot around. I've learned a lot about recycling just because of that. You may find too many wine bottles in my recycling bin each week, but I'm proud that I do recycle them. So I want to go ahead and find a way to go ahead and keep that going and educate the community. I know that in our magazine, as an example, we do have the numbers that are listed. As long as those numbers are accurate, those are the numbers that I recycle by, but that might be something that we need to ensure is correct. And then let's just start educating and blasting information. But if the board would back it, I'd like to go ahead and put something out to go ahead and get a task force going and get this addressed quickly. I'm happy to go ahead and be part of that. I would like somebody, maybe Brian, finance, something like that, to go ahead and really look at the numbers and see what makes sense, what doesn't. Yourself, Ken, and see if there's any members in the community that might be able to assist with that.
I would be happy to be part. Steve Northridge put a thing on the chat room there. I don't know if people saw it or not, but I really like that idea, because it almost, it's educational. It makes Big Bird point, and with a 5-year-old, Big Bird pointing is important, because, people will look at the recycling bin and say, I can't remember. Aha. Okay, so I thought that was a great idea, and I would love Ken to do the video. JR is great at this stuff. I think the only chance I think we have of being successful is getting email blasts, Friday flash thing. We may do something in the Celebration magazine, but I think something that actually went on the board would be great. And without it, we don't pick it up, because it'll be educational. When someone buys and sells a home or rents out a garage apartment for a year and stuff like that, we can put something in a Friday flash for 3 weeks in a row, and a new resident won't see it at all.
Just for those
Ken,
that
I do
are
have a question for you.
Just real quick.
I'm sorry,
Kevin,
one quick question. Oh, go for it.
I just want to be, for those that are not on video, the chat, because I know there's a couple, the chat box from Steve Northridge that Brian specifically referenced. It's like put it like an 8.5 by 11 adhesive label attached to the container, specifically saying what goes in it. And then Mary Ann's comment was doing an education campaign with simple images, video, things like that, and on paper. So again, it's the similar things to what you're hearing. I just wanted to make sure that since the chat box was referenced, that it was everybody could hear it. All you, Kevin. Sorry. Thank you.
No worries. One question that I was actually curious of Ken, when we changed over last fall to paper for yard waste, how has that been for you? Has it been successful? Did the education, I think maybe it could have been increased, it could always be better, but how did that work for you?
It has worked out pretty good. It went from when we started to being about 20% compliance to right now we're probably around the 85 to 90% compliance on the paper. So it has worked really well. you know, there's still a few out there that are still putting it out there, and you know, we leave them tags and let them know, look, you know, oops, something's wrong, please, you know, contact us so that you can figure it out, or whatever the case may be, or look at the website, because the website's pretty self-explanatory on what we do and what we don't. But it has worked out really well on that front. We have made a lot of strides.
So that might be a good guide. That might be a good guide to follow as we go through this. But overall, we're definitely not going to solve it today. How does the board feel about getting a task force going on this?
And to Kevin's question,
I like it.
Can I ask real quick for Kevin's question? Do we want Ken, Kevin, and JR to start talking about some preliminary communication to the residents, or do we want to wait until the task force is put into place? Because that's going to extend this a little bit longer.
I think we probably need to wait till the task force gets in place. That's
I don't see any reason why we shouldn't get a task force moving quickly. I mean, between Zoom, we had the finance committee meeting, we were able to put people in the room with good social distancing. We're not going to be talking about 100 people task force. We can have a small task force, and we can allow Zoom so people can watch it online if they want. I say the sooner the better.
And we can put it in the Friday Flash today, because that's scheduled to go out after this meeting. Do we want it to be an all call for a task force, or does the board have people in mind that you want to appoint to the task force?
We go back to Diana's point about having youth involved. Do a special outreach to youth.
Yes, I'm totally in agreement with that one, for sure.
I love it. I think that's great. So we'll just make it gear more towards the youth, middle school, high school students that want to be participants. Okay.
Diana, can you be on the task force?
Yeah, actually, I've got a daughter sitting here thinking this might make a good gold award for Girl Scouts.
Yeah, Eagle Scouts.
If we do 2 or 3 board members, I think Kevin's the point person because he is our liaison. Diana can be on there. If you want me on there, great. Or if you want me to just be an invitee from a finance perspective, I will definitely come anyway, Kevin. Ken, I'd like to know some numbers so that when we actually start going out to the public with something, I'd like to say, hey, this is why this matters to you. Because people are going to sit there and say, well, why do I care? Well, I'm paying X dollars, and if we don't fix this, it's going to go up a lot faster than the rate of inflation. So this is why it matters. So, you know, that's why I would like to not have the communication start until we actually get the right effective message. This is why it matters. This is how we're trying to make it simple. The youth being involved is wonderful because they'll actually, in a lot of households, start shaming parents, which would be wonderful. I mean, you know, we need the community involved.
Right.
Understand. And I think what Ken's built here with his initiative summary could actually be used for the objectives for the task force to say, here's the 5 areas that we want to tackle. And then that, especially with the awareness and communication and education as the initial part of this, and then the implementation and ongoing maintenance of it. And then there was a question on the chat about condos in downtown. Celebration Sanitation does not do sanitation pickup for all the condos. It's the single family homes within CROA, and a lot of the condo associations have their own sanitation services that they work through their association. So condos aren't necessarily included in this conversation.
And
I think it's important to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I would add to what Steve was saying to that particular point about the condos. We have, of course, we service some of the non-service area condos like Artisan Park and Water Street, being the two main ones that we do, other than CROA. And they have posed a question to me as well in passing over the years and here just recently, because they want to be part of this too. And the only problem that we have when you do multifamily condos and such is that it's really, really hard to police the actual recycling. So what happens in that situation is they have to have a common area where they bring the recycling to, and then it almost becomes a dump area where people bring in whatever, and just, you know, the people that have no stake in the game or no skin in the game, like the renters and all that. And I'm not saying nothing bad about renters at all, but I'm just saying that sometimes it gets to the point where they really don't have any skin in the game, and they just, you know, whatever, wish cyclers, as I call them, you know, put it out there and just wish that something happens to it.
I think wish cycling happens more often than we'd like to admit, Ken. I think people want to be engaged in the process, and therefore they feel good when they put things out. You know, oh, I'm recycling until they don't realize that it's contaminated.
Right, right.
So I think it's important the direction we're going now. But with regards to the financial incentive, the financial incentive is if we do not get this under control, CROA will sustain a higher cost for our trash. As it is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, with everybody being at home right now, the amount of trash is already increasing. So you're compounding and increasing in trash, plus you're increasing a situation where we're having issues where people are not even recycling properly, which again increases the trash composition.
Yeah, and that just adds to the overall problem when you have the folks that just kind of, like you were just saying. But yes, the amount of not only the solid waste, but actually the recycling. I mean, and right now, my crews we're really not nitpicking a whole lot right now, because the last thing I want to do at this point is just leave stuff on the ground. And of course, with the rain and the wind, it blows everywhere. So we're taking all the recycling, in other words, unless it's just something that's so blatantly that we just leave it. Styrofoam and plastic packaging material is one of the biggest contaminants that we have right now, recycling, other than the food contamination. People putting, you know, a half a gallon of cooking oil definitely doesn't help when you put it in the recycling, and before the guys get a chance to see it, it's already all in the hopper and it's all over everything that's already in there. You know, the last, 10 homes that we picked up is completely just, contaminated. That kind of awareness is what we really need to hammer home to get this program, going in the right direction.
So
right now, Steve, was that you, David? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I know I have two different thoughts. One is with this group that gets convened task force. Vanessa, you were talking about the financial piece and what CROA has to pay. And then Ken's been talking about the condos and individual homes. I think part of step 4 was implementation and timetable on compliance. So I would hope that this group would look at that financial piece. I know Brian's involved with that, but also when we talk about compliance, what does it mean for non-compliance? And so, and there might be different standards for the 2 condo groups that you've talked about, Water Street and Artisan, and then for single family homes. So look at the consequence piece and the financial part of that. The other question, this is more to Steve, when we use the term task force, does that require any specific resolution, or if we just, can we just move forward without a formal resolution? Just move forward. Does task force require some other authorization?
Yeah, a task force has an ending to it, so it's not an ongoing committee. I believe you could just consider, as long as the board adopts these objectives, you can just say this is the direction that we want the task force to go.
And come up with a report or a report to the community for implementation, whatever, by 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah, and you can certainly add or remove whatever you want from this, but for these objectives, as long as the board, there's a consensus of the board that wants to move forward with this as a task force.
Well, what you could do also is you could agree that we have a consensus and just make it an action item to adopt the task force June 24th board meeting. I mean, we've had the conversation. It could be 2 minutes that night, but then
Let's move sooner rather than later.
I think we can do it. I think we can do it at our next board meeting without any issues at all. And you certainly have the board support. I think everybody consistently has been supportive. Otherwise, we would have never put a board member responsible for actually overseeing it. So we know we were already, we obviously had it in mind at one point in time. So is there anything else that you need from us, Ken?
No, I think we pretty much covered what we needed to. The task force is going to be a big plus, I think, to get this really off the ground and moving in that right direction. It's kind of funny because my phone was over here ringing on vibrate, and it was Matt Orr with Recycle America was calling me at the same time. I'm like, well, I can't answer the phone right now, Matt.
So one last comment. This ties into, it could be youth involvement, could be the task force as a whole. Look at other communities, whether it's through CAI or CCMC or elsewhere. Just what do we know from state agencies, from associations? What can we learn? I think that'll help jumpstart a lot of things.
Thank you.
And Vanessa, if I may, we're going to formally adopt this on June 24th. I think the board agrees that we're launching it. So if Kevin and Diana want to get the brainstorming quickly with Ken and how we're going to structure this, let's not wait till the 24th.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And when I get off of here, Kevin, if you can, shoot me over a text and give me your contact so we can kind of get together and kind of hammer this out before the 24th.
Yeah, and the 24th is actually a decision day, and board packet is usually done a week before. So we're within days of having something drafted for inclusion in the board packet.
And actually, the agenda the agenda's already been has already been drafted, so we will add it to the agenda before it gets posted.
Good.
Yeah, and I am getting a message here from my PCAM, Susan, saying that the better form of governance is to actually adopt a resolution for a task force. So I think that either the board, Kevin, could probably write it as a resolution, or we could send it to the attorney. But I think as long as you adopt that on the 24th officially, then you'll be okay.
I'll draft something. I'll get it out to the board by Monday, and management, everybody send their feedback. We'll finalize the resolution next Friday's call. But if in the meantime, we can still solicit the community for involvement. I know that my goal, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm going to be a little ambitious with this. I'd like to get this knocked out and real answers by mid-August because we need the numbers for financial moving forward for next year. So I'm going to be striking this one pretty quickly. So I just need that support.
Great.
Perfect.
Ken, Ken, thank you.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead, Debbie. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead, Debbie.
Sorry, Vanessa. I just wanted to thank Ken for the service to the community. It's been outstanding, and we just really appreciate everything, especially during these times that you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thanks, and that's what we're here for. We're here to serve. So you got my full and divided attention, 100%.
And Vanessa, this is Brian. Since we got Ken and Steve on the line, and since I know Ken had indicated to me earlier this year that we're going to have increased costs with the additional trash of just everybody being home, if between now and the 24th we had an idea of what we were talking about for monies, that would be a wonderful thing. Just it needs to start factoring into public conversations, just so people are aware. This is a pass-through. It's there.
And I'll get you, Steve. I'll get you some numbers on tonnage and all that we have done. I did a quick go through on the tonnage since just on the recycling since March, so at the beginning of March to current, as of last Wednesday. Wouldn't have been yesterday. I mean this Wednesday, but we have collected right at 95.58 tons of just recycling since the beginning of March to current date. For the size of our community, that's a big number. To kind of, you just kind of put that in perspective. If it was, 5 times the amount of participation that we have now.
And then I know we also had trash too, Ken. So I'm kind of looking for, we need to get the big picture. Recycling. What would be a normal year? Where are we at this year? Because we've got something that's going to happen to us budget wise.
Right, and just really quick, just the trash, probably for the past few years that I have actually seen the tonnage, we're looking at a lot of it, so about 800 tons of just garbage, which that's a big number too for the size of our community.
Thank you. Thank you all. And again, Kevin, just too, and Kevin and Ken, as you're working and you want videos or communication be sent out, just make sure you work with JR on that. I'm sure he'll help out however you need to.
Okay. Sounds great.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, Ken. We appreciate your help and service.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
On to the next item. Farmers market.
Vanessa, you have a hand up from an iPhone. I don't know if you want to address that quickly.
I don't even see it.
Patrick, can you unmute that hand?
I didn't even see the hand. Sorry.
It's unmuted.
Go ahead.
So if you raised your hand. Yeah,
Hi.
sorry, Vanessa.
Vanessa, thank you, Steve. This is Celia McFadden, 1007 Celebration Avenue.
Hi, Celia.
I understand what you're talking about with the recycling. I just spent most of this time listening, the importance and the task force and all of this, and how you can't do it with the condos. Where I'm a condo owner, and why is it so important for the homeowners to be educated on recycling? And because we're a condo, that's okay. Our garbage is garbage and it goes in the garbage. I mean, I don't understand why we can't get a condo owner on the task force to try to figure out how to do the recycling with the condo owners. Why are we just pushed aside and it's only for the homes? I don't understand that. I don't get it. I pay the dues like everybody else does, and because we're a condo, we don't have to be educated. We don't have to recycle our items.
Vanessa, I can address that. I think Kevin has a question to go on to that, or a statement on that.
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. Celia, thank you for bringing it up. I actually, on the side notes, I'm not sure if you're online or can see the chat. I actually sent a quick message off to Susan, just double checking to see if we have a condo council meeting on the calendar. Now, the two of them are not actually connected. However, we can go ahead and influence perhaps what might help in the long run for Ken for a better rate throughout celebration if he can go ahead and have more contracts. It's basic business. If we can go ahead and get this education out there, everybody's going to be invited to it. Everybody's going to accept it and review it. But we can't, or we as CROA cannot force Ken to go ahead and recycle for the condo association that's not paying into the recycling dues. So that's in a perfect world, Ken or one company would take care of it all. But apart from just perhaps having this conversation in a condo council meeting, it's not going to happen. Trust me, as a condo person downtown, I wish we had it, but
yeah, I think the simple answer. Yeah, I think the simple answer, Celia, is that each condo association has their own condo board, and they can contract with whoever they want to do their sanitation. So as we educate and we send out the information, the condo owners will certainly have access to that, and we'll see that. But the condo boards have to negotiate with their own sanitation providers to talk about recycling. And condo owners are not charged the garbage fee, the sanitation fee. It's only single-family homeowners.
Okay, but in the meantime, all of this discussion on the importance of recycling and how important it is to do it the right way, and how important all these studies are done on garbage and recycling. So the garbage, and I'm not saying anything about what we're paying and anything like that, but the garbage from the condos, there's a lot of units, whether they're renters or owners, whether some people are going to follow the rules, whether some people don't want to recycle. The garbage from within the communities of the condos is garbage. So there's only the importance of the homeowners recycling. I'm trying to get a message across, like, if we're so concerned about recycling, then everyone should be recycling, whether they
and that's
or not.
Yeah. No, Celia, I'm gonna jump in really quick here, because we are the challenge. I think that the education piece that you're talking about, Celia, will be available to everybody. Okay. So all of our communication that goes out, anything we do through our Friday Flash, all of that will all be education. The challenge will come in as far as the actual implementation within the condos, because if CROA is not the one, if you're not part of the system, we don't have the ability to recycle your trash. It's in that condo. It's actually separately negotiated, but you will still be educated on it. The push for your condos needs to go directly to the condo board.
Cool. Okay. Okay.
CROA doesn't have a contract. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, Cecilia, let me jump in real quick and answer really quick to this issue. I have spoke to management at the condos that we're talking about, and I know if you're.
I'm at the terraces.
The terraces. I think we actually touched on that. I think it was, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but over there. But we of course don't service the terraces.
Right.
But that's liable to change in the future. But I'm more than welcome and more than open to offer recycling service to all the condos. That's not a problem on my end. The problem comes in whenever we try to hammer out how we're going to put our arms around this, because there's no accountability at that point, because you have multiple units and who knows what they're going to put out there. And my thing to them is say, look, guys, we don't mind doing it. We will do it, but you have to meet X, Y, C first. You can't just throw it out there. And now the communication and the education, I think that's very important. But the condo association and the management in the condo association has to be willing to take a step with this and make sure that it's being done right. And I think that's where the problem might lay with, people going in there and throwing, pizza boxes in the recycling, and they really don't care. Let's hope during the education process they will, and they'll learn how to do it. But it's up to each individual management company to actually get with us and say, hey, Ken, we want you to do this. Okay, we'll do it. And most of them, when I say, hey, it has to be a common area because it's a condo and somebody has to be overlooking it. And then when I say that, they go, we don't want to mess with it. So we're there, we'll do it, but they have to be able to step up. That's all.
Thank you both. Thank
Am
you,
I
Celia.
still on, Vanessa? Can I ask one more question?
As long as it's quick, we're running low on time. Go ahead.
It will be. Do they still have the meeting, I think monthly, with all the condo associations?
Yes.
So can that be brought up at one of those meetings?
It was on our text message. It's already noted on there. We have a condo council meeting, and we'll address it there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
and
Celia.
those are typically quarterly. The condo council meets quarterly, and we just didn't meet in May, but we will. I'm working with the attorney to get something scheduled here in the next month or so.
Thank you all. Thank you again, Ken.
Gentlemen, if you guys are done with me, I'm gone. I got things to do, so I got garbage to pick up.
You're all set. Thanks, Ken.
Hi, guys. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye, Ken.
Bye-bye. Farmers Market?
Yeah, so in the board packet that you received this week, there was a proposal from the farmers market from Dana Brown with RTP Production. And Dana Brown's actually on the call, but I'll just quickly go through the guidelines that they placed for us. So they're looking at some new summer hours from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. if the board approves. There'll be signage with COVID-19 requirements throughout the farmers market. All their managers and vendors will be required to wear a mask, and the vendors have the option to put a plexiglass shield up between them and the customer. Managers and vendors will have their temperature checked as they're loading in the market. Vendors are required to have hand sanitizer for customer use. All vendor tents will be spaced 10 feet apart, and vendor booths will have 6 feet ground markers in front of their setup for social distancing. No sampling of products, and managers will remind patrons to please keep social distancing. She also provided a map with a layout of downtown, and they have used this set of guidelines for other farmers markets that they currently have open. But again, Dana is on the call, so if you have any specific questions of her, but this is the layout and their proposal of how they would run a farmers market if the board votes to bring it back.
Steve, this is Brian.
Go
Can I ask a question, please? Because what I see here is you went all the way from the park up around Sweet Escapes, Bank of America, all the way to Starbucks, all the way to Columbia restaurant and everything, we would be on CCD property, we'd be on Lexington property, we'd be on CROA stuff. So has everybody else seen this, bought into it, or am I right or wrong?
It's not on anybody else's property but the Kanoa streets. We've had many conversations with Mike regarding what they're looking for if we were to expand it in that direction. This is a Kanoa approval, and myself as the Kanoa manager could approve it if the board wants to bring back this CROA event.
I'll open it up to everybody, but here's my number one concern. Actually, it's twofold. The first one is we are bringing in people from outside into a residential area. That's my biggest concern with bringing it back. I would feel much more comfortable, and I will say I've had this conversation with Steve, that I really would feel much more comfortable having the farmers market over by the 851 building, over someplace where it's not so residential. Can we do it can we do it over in the parking lot by the school? How can we do this so that we are not forcing residents who want to go into their homes if they've gone somewhere, or residents or any, you're putting residents in an uncomfortable situation. And correct me if I'm wrong, if we take over all of those areas, we then have to close the streets down at 2 o'clock the day before. So if we're open on Sunday, we're closing our streets down at 2 o'clock. No?
We're not, Vanessa. It would not be at 2 o'clock. It would be after 10 o'clock. The last monitor in the evening would shut the streets down at night.
Okay.
And even if someone was still parked there in the evening time overnight, we'd still have until the next morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, to try and get them to move their vehicle. So that's not a valid concern there.
Okay.
But
perfect.
we
Thank
did,
you.
JR did reach out to the farmers market and to Dana, and they want to wait until it can come back to downtown, to the layout that they presented to you today.
Okay, thank you. I'll open this to board comments. Brian, did you have any more comments, or anybody else on here? Kevin, go ahead.
I actually, Vanessa, I like exactly what you had just said. I know it puts it into a challenging position for the vendor. And I think they've done a great job since they've joined Celebration. But given the trying times, it's going to be something that we need to find more open space, less congestion, at least at this time. I like the thought of the 851 building or the school parking lot. One thing that I just started scratching my head about recently, do we have restrooms or porta potties for the farmers market at this time? I know that was a concern with the previous vendor. Do we have them at all?
The public restrooms
not relative to
are at, the public restrooms are at Kilwins through an agreement with CDD, which allows it to be open to general public, not just Kanoa or CROA residents.
Okay, that was just, and that's a separate topic. I was just curious about that, but thank you.
Yeah, if we move it somewhere else, then absolutely we'd have to bring in some restrooms for it.
Board comments?
This is David. It also sounds like, from what I think Steve just said, that if we wanted to move it to 851, a school parking lot, Lakeside, the vendor does not want that. They want to wait till we come back to downtown.
Correct. That's the information I've been given. Yes.
And so the other piece of Vanessa's discussion about if you have this, and then how about the downtown residents, which is an important consideration, is that this farmers market services not just Celebration residents, but people in the surrounding communities. So we don't know how busy it would be with people from outside our community. So that all affects, that, if you will, the foot traffic, congestion, and potential exposure for our residents, and particularly the residents who live in that area.
I think the other suggestion, and that we talked about at one point in time, was perhaps can we move it back by the civic corridor? And I'm guessing that falls in line still with the same concerns. Is that correct, Steve? They would like to wait till it's downtown?
Yes, that's my understanding. I mean, after the meeting today, we can go back and tell Dana you've heard the conversation from the board, or would you like to reconsider? But the information that I was given from JR is that at this point in time, they want to wait on downtown.
Well, Steve, since she's online and since she manages other ones, what is the experience? It would be valuable to hear her talk about the experience at other locations. Has their population attendees went up? Has it went down? What have they learned? She's got better information than any of us.
Yep, I agree. And they, the governor never closed farmers markets. So there were many farmers markets that stayed open throughout the entire stay-at-home order. So I think Dana can provide better information. So Dana, are you available?
Is she unmuted? I'm not sure which one she is to unmute her.
Yeah, there's a half a dozen phone numbers there.
Yeah.
JR, can she text you with her number, or?
Can you hear me?
She should. Yes,
there
we're
she
good.
is.
Go
I think
ahead.
we hear her. Yes.
You're all ready, Dana. Go ahead. You're set.
Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. Yeah, we've been running very successfully at Winter Garden. We have socially distanced our vendor booths. We have the 6-foot markers in front of all the booths. We actually have a line control in front of our produce that we only let so many people into the area to shop for produce at any given time. It's been really well managed. We do have assistance from the Winter Garden Police Department. We have one police officer that helps us. And then we have recordings that we do on a speaker every 15 minutes that, you know, a friendly reminder to please social distance yourself. Winter Garden is a very large market, larger than the foot traffic that we get at Celebration, and it seems to be, you know, doing really well. We've had all the major news stations come out and do stories on how we've, you know, followed the CDC guidelines, and it seems like most of the other markets are kind of copying our example. We were the only farmers market in Central Florida that stayed open through all of this, and now all the other ones have opened back up. Winter Park is open, Maitland's open, Sanford's open, Lake Mary's open. Orlando is going to open on the 28th, and Lake Nona opens tomorrow. So, but all the social distancing that we've been doing and the other markets that have kind of copied Winter Garden, it seems to be working out pretty well. We haven't had any real problems. And every time we see a problem, we just add either more signage or another manager. And so far it's run very smoothly.
Board questions?
So we need a motion, right?
We need a motion if we're going to open it or not open it. I need a motion or something, or even more questions if there's.
Jerry Barr. Or even.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry. Wait, yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
I had a question for Dana. Did you require masks for the people that were coming from the community that were buying and participating in the farmers market, not the vendors?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
I'll repeat it for you, Jerry.
Did you require masks? I'm not talking about the vendors. I'm talking about. So you just let the people congregate together?
We suggest that all patrons wear masks, but obviously you can't force them to do that. We're very pro-mask, very pro-mask.
Okay, thank you.
So vendors are required to wear masks, but attendees are not required to wear masks.
We suggest that the attendees wear masks, but if vendors are required to wear masks, vendors and managers, mandatory. But I can't control the general public, but we suggest that they wear masks.
I just want to point out to the board too that we haven't required anybody to wear masks for any of our reopenings. We've strongly suggested, we posted signs everywhere, but we've not made it mandatory. It's just once we start making things mandatory, you have to try and enforce it, and it's impossible to enforce.
All right, I will make a motion that we open the farmers market with the guidelines as suggested here on June 28th. I can get a second, and then we can finish the conversation and vote.
I'll second that. This is Diana.
So a motion from Brian and a second from Diana. Any further conversations with regards to this from any board members?
So this is in the specific location of downtown, which means, I mean, if we wanted to open it, on the civic court.
Proposal, David.
Say that again?
As laid out in the proposal.
Yeah, right. So the discussion of having it in the civic corridor is not an option within this proposal, which I know that.
It's not an option based on the motion.
Right, understand.
Yep.
And I don't think the civic corridor is a good idea. I think 851, I think a lot of people would walk there. I don't think they would go to the civic corridor.
Okay.
I mean, that's my personal belief. But
or different locations
for downtown, and for the sake of the public, it would have booths that are by Bank America and the post office going all the way down to where the stage is at for the 4th of July, and they go over by Starbucks and all the way over by where Columbia is at with spacing and stuff like that. But it would be a well spread out across downtown. And the hours would be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So it would be for 4 hours.
Right.
Can I ask one question for Dana, or is it too late?
Oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So Dana, if you're still there, first, I just want to say thank you for, everything that you have done with the community since you guys came in. I love it. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Compared to, two questions for you. Compared to other communities that you guys service with farmers markets, how do you feel about the congestion of the Celebration Farmers Market compared to Lake Eola downtown, Lake Nona, or Winter Garden as an example? And the second question to that is Winter Garden specifically, I noticed that they had hand washing stations that were available for the public. Are those provided by the local government there, or how are those in place? Those are the two questions I have for you.
The hand washing stations are provided by the city. And as far as the real estate, I feel that the spreading out in a Celebration, the way we put on the map that we provided you, it's more space and it's wider streets than what I'm used to working with in other areas. So I think the spacing would be even more spacious. I mean, the booths can be really spread out. There's wider walking paths for the patrons than I have in other areas.
Okay, and the space relative to businesses and things like that, that's pretty much the same than you would find in other locations. You
mean the location of the vendor booths next to your retail? Is that what you're asking?
Like I'm just looking at the overall congestion of amount of people that visit, whether it's a farmer's market or a restaurant that's nearby. How many people congregate in that one area compared to other communities that you have?
Well, what we were getting ready to do before all this stuff started and we shut down is we were going to space the booths anyway on the street there in Celebration. So the entranceways and the patios would be open in front of the restaurants. So we wouldn't put any vendors in close quarters to them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other board questions? Debbie, anybody else?
Yeah, Vanessa, what was your initial concern about the impact of the residents you were speaking of?
Yeah, and it's still my concern. I'm actually, I'll let you know, I'm not in favor of doing it downtown. I would like to do it over by the 851. And that's because the residents that live downtown, we've really tried very hard to not do events and things like that that bring people to residential areas. And I feel that this is something that, yes, I agree. We want a farmer's market. I would love to have it. I would love for them to do it over at the 851 building area because they have bathrooms. It's not residential. People can go there. You can open it up to the public more comfortably. So that's my concern, Debbie.
Is there any option on Lakeside that was discussed?
Again, JR had a conversation with Dana about moving it to different locations, and from my understanding, unless Dana wants to say something different here, but from my understanding is that they want to wait until they can do it at downtown.
What is the 851 building? What is that? I'm not sure if I know what the 851.
It's the town hall offices on Celebration Avenue.
Okay.
I would add that I'm having a hard time downtown, but I would be 100% all for that field that's right by 851. But that's up to the vendor to decide if that works for them.
I made the motion, but Vanessa and I spoke this week, and my favorite location is 851. And I actually think residents would enjoy it a lot because a lot of people, East Lawn, Spring Park, pick your place, can walk to it. I think if you took the driveway in and out, I think if you took the parking area behind it, if you took some of the field stuff like that, I think you got a huge amount of space there. It would be my first choice. I mean, I'm for opening farmers market. I think 851 is a better permanent location, to be honest with you, for it, because I think there's a ton of space and a ton of flexibility there.
Well, do you want to? I would say the motion right now is to open it up as is right now. So we have two choices. We can either vote on the motion, or you can rescind your motion and change the motion. I think it's important to recognize that, you know, right now Dana is wanting it downtown. So I think if you want to vote on that first, and then she'll know whether or not she has the support to do that. I'm fine with that.
I'm not rescinding my motion. I am.
Yeah, let's vote on that. Let's vote on the motion.
I'm saying there is a second option. I want to have the vote.
Okay, perfect. So the motion stands with the second. Any further conversations or discussions? Okay, then I'm just going to call the vote. David, yes or no?
No.
Marianne, yes or no? I don't see or hear you, Marianne. I know you're on here because you're texting.
She's still here.
I've got you. I'm asking you to unmute, Marianne.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry, I was muted.
You're good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes or no? You're good. Yes or no?
Okay. Shockingly, yes.
Okay. Marianne, Kevin?
To follow that, I'm shockingly no, just because of the location right now.
Okay. And Debbie, yes or no?
I'm a no.
And did I get everybody other than me?
No.
Oh, you. Kevin.
You didn't get Brian.
I didn't get Brian, sorry. Usually I have my cheat sheet, sorry. Brian, are you a yes or a no?
I'm a yes, and then you got Diana too.
Yep, Diana, yes or no?
I'm a yes.
A yes? Okay, and I'm a no. Because I would love to have this, I would love to have it back, I really would, but I think I'm not comfortable having it downtown.
Does someone want to make another motion for 851, and then we can work with Dana to see if it would be feasible for her or not?
Or separately do the homework and bring it back next week.
We can do that.
I'm fine. I'm fine either way. If we want to make a motion for relocation and Dana can then decide if that's what she wants to do, I'm fine with that.
Okay, I will.
Would you like to make any motion?
I will make a motion to have the farmers market set up at the 851 building, utilizing the road in, the parking lot behind it, and the field as necessary, with the building being for access to the bathrooms. And today's vote would be to say yay or nay as to going down that path, with the understanding that 1 week from now, we would get the formal written proposal, and adapted then it would start on the 28th.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
Oh, Marianne seconded first. She actually beat you to it this time, Kevin. Okay, then any further discussion regarding this?
Just one question.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Just one question, Steve. Are they able to have bathroom access on Sunday?
That would be a challenge that we'll have to work through.
Everyone, does the 851 building have electricity?
Yes.
No, there's no electricity for the field. There would have to be generators. I mean, there's a lot of logistical things that would have to be done if it was going to be done at the 851 building.
That's true.
Where is electric coming from now?
Well, there's electric in the building, but if we were going to put tents and stuff in the field.
No, downtown.
Oh, from light poles and things that
around the light poles
where we have access to.
Well then, Steve, when we look at the 851 area, why don't we look at it as a potential permitted site? And if we have to put in some seed capital to make it work properly for the long term, let's consider that then.
I mean, I can have the conversation with Dana. I've had this conversation with our old farmers market vendor, and they just were adamantly that it would not work at the 851. But we can certainly talk to Dana about it and have her walk around and walk through the logistics.
The purpose of today's vote is to say, yes, we would be interested
to give them the opportunity.
Work at it to see if it can be something really good.
Yep. Okay, and are we good moving? Are we good forward? We have our motion and our second. Any other discussion before I call the vote? Okay. David, yes or no?
No.
Mary Ann, yes or no?
Yes.
Debbie, yes or no?
Yes.
Brian, yes or no?
Yes.
Kevin, yes or no?
Yes.
Diana, yes or no?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So hopefully we can get something worked through. Then anything, the next one is basketball court reopening.
Okay, Patrick, if you could put up the basketball graphic, please. And while he's doing that, I'll give you a little background. I looked on CDC for recommendations for basketball courts specifically. I could not find anything. I went to NRPA, National Rec Parks Association, and they do have some recommendations. Basketball courts are a little bit challenging though, and I'll kind of go through this, but the reopening of the outdoor courts, the recommendations from NRPA is largely dependent on the type of activities that will occur in those spaces. So then they give a lot of supporting information. That's what we use to build this graphic here. So the proposal, if we were to allow the basketball courts to be back open, is to follow all signage and posted rules, practice social distancing, and then really the only type of activity that can take place there is single and individual use activity only. Equipment sharing outside the same house would be, we'd recommend to limit that. Practice good hygiene as with anything, washing hands, using the sanitizer. And we could have a hand sanitizer station there at the court. Frequently clean and disinfect the equipment that they're sharing, which would really be on the users. And then again, if residents are not adhering to those protocols, CROA board would reserve the right to close the courts again. And we would say that all users accept the risks that are related to exposure to COVID-19. And the reason why we say that is one of my biggest concerns with basketball is that we just don't have enough monitors to have someone sit there at the court to enforce social distancing. If the group decided that they just wanted to play a 4-on-4 pickup game, and there was a lot of contact, we wouldn't have somebody there to say, all right, now you have to separate. And then even if we did, that could still cause problems. So while NRPA is saying, go ahead and open them, they're saying there's some pretty strict rules to opening them. And again, when I'm making these recommendations, I have to find some source of authority that's giving information for this. And this is what we were able to find through National Rec and Parks Association. So I'll leave it to the board for this discussion. I'm not giving you a lot of easy decisions today.
No.
Any comments? I can share my thoughts initially, unless somebody else would like to go first. All right, then I'll go really quick, although I've got the old lawnmower coming my direction. So, so I guess I'm more comfortable with this because we are not supplying anything. We literally put up a hoop. We don't supply basketballs. We don't do anything. So we are not scheduling anything versus our pools where we were actually putting out our furniture. We are putting things out for people to come to. In this particular situation, we're not. So I'm more comfortable in this because you can have a family come down and play. It's a family unit or friends having the sanitizers. So that's just my thoughts. Am I crazy about it? No. But it's one of those things that because we're not providing things, other than having hand sanitizer and things like that, we're not providing anything. So that's my insight. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions, board? Okay. Then if nobody has any comments, does anybody want to make a motion for anything?
I think this is going to die for lack of emotion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
There's
yeah.
no motion, no motion.
On the board when it comes to other things, but I struggle with this.
Kevin?
So I'll say this, could we take this item and put it at the end of our meeting and come back to this at the very end after we review everything else instead of letting it die this second?
Sure.
Just reorder the agenda when that, yeah.
I'm fine with that.
If that's okay?
Could we do it after swim lessons?
And then yeah, something like that.
All right, I'm good with that. Okay.
Cool.
So playground reopening. Steve?
Okay, Patrick's going to switch, and while he's doing that, I did find some recommendations from CDC when it comes to playgrounds, and they have a giant do's versus don'ts on the CDC webpage, and now this week, playgrounds has moved from the don'ts to the do's. So they do say carefully consider use of playgrounds and helping children follow the guidelines. Some of the concerns from the CDC are that playgrounds are often crowded and could make social distancing difficult. It can be difficult to keep the surfaces clean, and then any SARS or COVID viruses that cause the COVID-19 can spread when young children touch a contaminated object and then touch their eyes, nose, or mouth. So they're saying if you are visiting a playground, maintain a social distance, wash your hands, and wear the face covering if you can, it says. So maintain, that's our rules that we've listed here, to maintain the social distancing, and again, encouraging washing hands and the face cloth. And then we could have hand sanitizer stations available. But again, users are going to have to accept the risk of utilizing playgrounds. And the same concern that we had before, we could probably clean the playgrounds every morning. It's going to be a stretch to do that, but we think that we could probably get that done. But we won't be able to, we just don't have the resources without hiring new staff to go out and clean these every 2 hours. And again, we just don't have monitors to sit at the playground to ensure social distancing and those types of things. So again, another tough decision, but I'll turn it over to the board to discuss.
Well, anybody want to start on this one? I would be happy to if nobody else was.
I'll jump in. Just quoting from CDC, their big letters say, be thoughtful about the reopening and care of playgrounds. And then in terms of the cleaning, they say, outdoor area, I'm quoting, outdoor areas generally require normal routine cleaning and do not require disinfection. And then they go on to say it's an inefficient use of disinfectant supplies. You should continue existing cleaning and hygiene practices for outdoor areas. So that is not inconsistent with what Steve just said. So once a day cleaning, not disinfecting, once a day cleaning is okay.
I'll go next. I was talking with Nick Watson, who's the head of Celebration Golf Club here, the training facility and everything. Their kids program has exploded with people because kids need to get out of the house. They need something to do. He and I were joking about distancing yesterday, in that, is it impossible to have kids distance? Yes. But kids are more aware, and I can speak to my grandkids, even the one that's 5, are more aware of distancing than they ever were before. And, you know, at some point, going to a playground, we've got to rely on parents to be parents versus us as a board to be police. And I'm at a point where I'm saying, you know, we need good signage. You know, I'm not an advocate of having town hall, or CCMC having management, having tons of people out there monitoring these things and everything. You're going to hear me keep pushing cameras. We need cameras where we have cameras so that we can be responsible. But I think we have to trust people, especially on an outdoor area and stuff like that. And we really preach that, you know, parents need to do what they feel is safe.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments?
I would like to make a comment. I mean,
go ahead, Diana. You need to speak up, though. Speak up.
Okay, we've been using the CDC as our guideline, and now they're saying to go ahead and open it, so that with the proper cleaning. So I'm okay with it. I think we've used that as our guiding force in the past, So that's what I think we should do for this as well.
And let me add too, we also use the governor's office, and there's no restrictions from the governor's office either.
Any other comments?
So I'll go ahead and I'll make a comment. The board has seen a lovely post, and some of our community members may have seen a lovely post regarding playgrounds. And I want it to be very clear right now that this is not on the agenda because of that post, that email, or that approach. I want to be very clear to the community for that reason. And neither is that a reason why I make the motion or make a vote that we might have today. I want to recognize that it appears as though our nearest community, or if you will, city, Kissimmee, they have opened their playgrounds. As Diana mentioned, we have followed CDC guidelines and everything. We are not the experts. Regardless of how much we study this and educate ourselves and read, we are not the experts. By opening any amenity that we have opened in the community, it is not a requirement for you to go to that amenity. And I encourage those that remain uncomfortable not to attend. But with that being said, I would be comfortable moving forward and opening to management's recommendation. Those would be my comments. I'll make the motion if necessary.
And when the motion's made, we would consider opening them on Monday of next week.
Okay. I'll share with you, and I think this goes back to my point earlier regarding basketball. Basketball, we don't provide any equipment, right? They bring their own stuff. We have the net up, that's it. I'm still really uncomfortable in providing our equipment, our things. The reality is, if something happens, right, it's still our property. It is they are going to be climbing on CROA facilities. So I still have very big concerns. I understand and totally respect the CDC and the governor and the fact that there are playgrounds around. I'm still really uncomfortable with this. So that's where I'm at. And again, the distinction in my mind for this versus basketball is they're on our equipment versus bringing their own. Any other comments, questions? Go ahead, David.
This will sound like a repeat of last week and the week before and the week before. I'm concerned on a couple of points. We do have increasing numbers of confirmed cases. Some of that's due to testing, but just over the last week, it went from 5,500 to 7,400 in the state. And then if you look at percentage, the weekly rate continues to go up. And the most recent daily rate, if you look at this past Wednesday, the most recent, it was 5.6% positive. 1 week before, it was 3.5% positive. So we're going in the wrong direction. We're also looking at governor guidelines. And as I said last week, there were two standards that were for the reopening for our consideration, either of them in the right direction. And for us, for Florida, both have been going in the wrong direction. So it doesn't meet that criteria. Once I see 2 weeks of either of those going down, then I'll start to say yes. But the other part is what I'm seeing more largely is the casualness. People already getting back to normal, not wearing face masks. I know it's an option. So my part with CROA is, the practical side of reopening, and then the other is the message that it sends. Part of the message for me is it sends is everything's okay, it's back to normal. And I am not back to normal and do not see that our community, I don't want to pass the message that we can just go back to where we were in March. So I am very cautious. I remain cautious as I was over the last month. It's a repeat, and I'll just keep watching and looking for guidance in multiple places. But I'm also concerned about the perception, not just the reality, the perception.
Thank you, David. Debbie or Marianne?
This is Marianne. My stance is probably going to be similar to what it was. This playgrounds in particular are a conundrum issue for me. And I also feel like the conflicting information between the recommendations to not open certain facilities while numbers are not going down. And then, there's so much conflicting information, but I'm trying to walk this line where we are beginning to put our toe in the pool with opening things up where the least likelihood because of, of spread, especially since, while children may, and the evidence to date may not suffer the symptoms as much, they spread it like crazy. Yeah. So this is tough. This is very tough, but I'm inclined to feel that I don't see. I'm not ready to see. I'm ready to see them for children, but I think that I don't think it's time, which is very difficult to say out loud, but I don't think it's time yet.
Thank you, Marianne. Debbie, did you have any comments?
No, I'm in agreement. This is a very, very difficult decision for the board. I think we're all anxious to open things up, but it's just, as far as the direction on this, it's just not very clear, and we're trying to follow a certain protocol, and it's just not clear. I know a lot of the camps are opening, and I think with supervision, it's easier, but with this, it's a tough decision.
We just don't have the staff, unfortunately, to be able to monitor a situation and clean. And although it says you don't have to do cleaning, just regular soap and water cleaning and things like that, I think that's contrary to everything that we've been hearing, even with our pool equipment. So I'm not sure how your pool stuff has to be disinfected, but your playground stuff doesn't. So I'm confused by that to the conflicting reports that Marianne had reported. Kevin, I agree. If there's any resident comments, I just ask that you're quick and to the point. We're getting into some lengthy times, but I also want to make sure that that anybody has a voice. They're more than welcome to speak out. So if you have a hand raised or anything like that, board, I'll need your help if anybody wants to speak.
I don't see any hands.
Nope, I don't see any hands, and nobody's chiming in.
Do we actually have a motion or not?
Nope, that's what I was just going to say. Is there anybody that has a motion?
I'll make a motion that we open the playgrounds effective Monday.
Do I have a second for Brian's motion?
I would second it.
Kevin, second. Any further discussion?
Call the vote.
Okay. David, yes or no?
No.
Marianne, yes or no?
No.
Debbie, yes or no?
No.
Brian, yes or no?
Yes.
Kevin, yes or no?
Yes.
Diana, yes or no?
Yes.
And I am very sorry. I'm actually a no on this. And again, I go back to it's our CROA property, and this inconsistent. I don't want to. We just can't police it the way we need to. So I'm sorry for those that were looking for something different. I would like to see, though, if anything changes for the next week, just keep an eye out for any updates, Steve, so that those that are not in favor right now, if that will change.
We will. We'll keep an eye on it.
Thank you. Next agenda item is the CCFC field reopening.
Yeah, and Patrick, if you could pop up the second page, the one that starts with game on, if you could go to that one. Everything that you see on the first page is the same as it was last week. Last week, the CROA board asked us to take it back to the recreation committee and have the conversation with them. So yesterday afternoon, we had this conversation. It was a very good, detailed conversation, a lot of points brought up, a lot of back and forth conversation regarding this. So some of the changes that were made by the rec committee were the capacity item. They would like the capacity 1 to 11, one coach to 11 athletes with no more than 25 on the field at one time. They'd also like to see an athlete drop-off point, and then adhere to designated complex entry and exit points. And then they again asked that management provide a daily status report, a daily update to ensure that restrooms are being cleaned properly, that we're making counts on the field to ensure that we have the ratios that we're recommending, and then that outside of the groups of 11 athletes, that there's the social distancing of the spectators and those types of things. So there was a unanimous decision. It was the entire committee voted that they would approve this plan that you see in front of you. So I will turn it over to the board for discussion on the plan.
Steve, just for 2 clarifying items, Dr. Barr is part of this committee, so when we say it got passed by somebody who has spoken previously at our meetings as a medical professional. I want people to hear that.
He seconded the motion, yes.
Perfect. And we have great camera coverage out there, so we can monitor what the heck is going on.
Correct. And we have staff that actually are on site there.
Good.
So I'll add a couple of comments, and I want to first thank the rec committee as well as the board for letting this go back to the committee and management for getting it scheduled so quickly. I dialed in yesterday. It was fantastic discussion. I'm going to tell you from the beginning, it wasn't a matter of everybody was 100% in agreement, but when it was talked through it was over, I mean, almost an hour and a half, maybe a little over. It had some great conversation. If we recall last week, it was a 4-3 with a no. I was the no. And I am in support of this after using the eyes and ears of that committee and their background and hearing more from the partner that would go ahead and be participating and overseeing. So I'm pretty comfortable moving forward.
Thank you. And we have one board member that has to drop off at 11:30, and I'd really like to make sure we get a vote in as soon as possible, if that's reasonable for the board. I do want to point that the difference in my mind between a playground and this is we have people on site at all times. They're not using CROA balls, etc. It is the entity that will be that's actually doing this. So that's the distinction in my mind. Anybody else have comments?
What was the reopening date, Steve?
It would be June 15th for Monday.
Okay.
And I want to add also, this is only reservation, so if we do not have a group reserving that facility, we're going to close it again, and we're going to put those monitors that were at the field complex, we're going to put them back out in the community to help roam and look at pools and other areas. But when it's open, the monitors will be on site at the facility.
So since Kevin was at the meeting yesterday, Kevin, make the motion.
I'll make the motion. Just so you know, my Wi-Fi is going crazy again. So I'm still on the call, but I think my camera's gone and all that. But I would like to make the motion as recommended by management and the Recreation Committee to reopen as outlined.
I'll second.
Second?
I'll second.
Second from Brian. Okay, any further discussion? Call the vote. David, yes or no?
No, reasons outlined before.
Yep. Mary Ann, yes or no?
I'm actually going to go yes on this one because of the parameters that are in place. And I think there'll be wider open spaces and more restricted interaction than at a playground.
Thank
so
you,
I'm
Mary Ann.
yes.
Debbie, thank you. Debbie, yes or no?
Yes.
Brian, yes or no?
Yes.
Kevin, yes or no?
Yes.
Diana, yes or no?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the fields as with the guidelines and parameters are open. Again, reservation only for our partners. So this is not a free-for-all for anybody to go down to the field. I just want to make sure that that's totally understood by residents.
Exactly. It's not open to just walk the path or anything at this point in time. It's only for field reservations. So if it's closed, it's closed. It's just.
Yep. Constructive play with guidance and with attendance.
Right.
Okay. Perfect. Swim lessons?
For swim lessons, it was part of the agenda for the rec committee yesterday. We have 3 providers that have identified themselves, and we wanted to bring that to the committee, but we ran out of time yesterday. So I would ask that the committee is going to address all 3 and have the proposals presented to them on the 22nd. So if the board's comfortable, can we just push this agenda item until after the rec committee has an opportunity to review those proposals?
I think that's totally appropriate. Yep. Everybody's good with that?
Yes. Fine.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Yep. Thank you, Steve. Then we can revisit the basketball courts if that's per Kevin's request.
So going back to basketball and recognizing where we've gone in discussions in this meeting, the reasons why we voted yes or no for separate things, I would like to make the motion to open the basketball courts as outlined by management.
Do I have a second for the basketball courts?
And Kevin, that would be for Monday, right?
For Monday, yes, or whenever you guys feel is best for you.
Okay.
To put whenever you can put the hoop back up.
Well, we got to get the hand sanitizers and make sure everything's clean and that kind of stuff. So I just want to give them the weekend with all the other stuff they already had scheduled.
For purposes of conversation, I'll be the second.
Okay. So Kevin and Brian is the second. Discussion, questions, conversation.
Call the vote.
All right. Okay. David, yes or no?
No.
I think Marianne had to drop off. Marianne?
I'm actually getting to drop off like in this moment in time. So, and this is a hard one. I think I'll say yes, and we'll try this. But I'm nervous.
Yes or no?
I'm not so sure.
I got
yes.
you. I got you. If we see there's an issue, I go back to my same comment, right? If it's an issue, we close it. It's that simple. Thank you, Marianne. Debbie, yes or no?
No.
Brian, yes or no?
No.
Kevin, yes or no?
Yes.
Diana, yes or no?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And again, for my outline reasons. Okay.
So it passed 4-3. So
It passed 4-3.
It did, yeah.
Just for clarification. Yes, just for clarification. The no's were David, Debbie, and Brian.
Right.
Any other, let's see here, preacher workshops. Right now,
I think if we want to talk about what.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Vanessa. I was just going to say, if we want to talk about what you want to address next week.
We put up
Yeah, that's what I was. For the 19th, we have disposable of inoperable NEVs is the only thing that I have listed here as something that we need to discuss next weekend or next Friday. Where else do you want to go? You want security, since now we have no sheriff funding, or do we want? Is there something else that Steve that you thought that was more important, or board? I'll open this up to anybody.
Or at least start that conversation on the sheriff's issue.
I mean, our only item that we need immediate attention is just to be able to dispose of those NEVs that we've used for pieces and parts throughout the years. So that should be a very quick conversation. So if you have something that takes a little bit more time, security would be a good fit.
Does that security include the cameras? Because we never finished cameras.
Well, the cameras, we have an agenda item for the January, or for the
board meeting,
normal board
June.
meeting, and I think it's for the lakeside cameras to be approved.
Yes, just lakeside.
Did you want your cameras
was
to be
an
included
80
in the
plus.
Why don't we have more, let's have that as part of the security discussion, more dialogue on cameras and.
Let's see, I've been pushing. I'd like that. I'm going to keep pushing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So security to include staffing, lakeside security, sheriff, and cameras. Is that reasonable, board?
Yeah, the whole that whole package of security.
Kevin, you were going to say something?
Touching on the NEV conversation that Steve just brought up, I think one of the things that I recall is something about the buying versus leasing, and those discussions were to go ahead and be investigated. I don't know with the finance committee now in place if that might be something that's going on. Just they might go together, that conversation.
Well, and I'll tell you that this is Susan. Am I on? Yes, I'm on.
Yes.
Mike's actually getting those numbers together. They're not quite ready for this board packet, but he will have it together based on management direction last year.
Okay.
Comments? So time-wise for next week, we have enough for the NEVs to start with that, and security, cameras, et cetera, et cetera.
That'll be a full right there.
That'll be a full discussion.
Yeah. that'll be full. Plus, we always do our, if there's any changes with regards to CDC recommendations, et cetera, for the playgrounds, we can address that too.
And we'll also have the farmers market and the playground reopening.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well,
farmers
market.
Is there a point in bringing back playgrounds unless something drastically changes, unless I get new information from CDC?
I would push playgrounds off 2 weeks. Only if something changes.
Yeah.
In your list, Vanessa, of future topics, we have talked about doing the covenants review and conversation at some point.
Mm-hmm.
We need to workshop that. And we also had an email about the sidelines and the parking around the Catholic Church and stuff like that. There's one, we didn't resolve it via email, but we need to discuss it or do something with it just so it's on a future topic list.
Okay. Susan, you got that on your list too? Perfect.
I got it.
That may need to be sooner than later. You might want to talk about those sightlines next week.
Probably a good idea. We'll go ahead and add that on there. We can add that part of because it kind of falls into security. That's part of the concern is safety and security, people being able to see getting in and out of there. So I'm good with that. We good, board?
All good. All good.
Debbie, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
Just one comment. As I'm thinking about possible roadblocks with the 851 and the farmers market, can we keep their current proposal as a backup if the 851 doesn't work to reopen and consider that next week?
Yeah, if you want to revote for it, if that's something that, if there's any changes or anything like that.
I mean, just when I considered the 851 building, I had not considered what Steve said as far as the electrical challenges and bathroom challenges, and I just think we may want to keep it as an option.
Okay, fair enough. Board, anybody else? Are we good to have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Just prior to doing so, I just wanted to make one comment really quick. Steve, for your team on site, I'm not sure who is over the social media page for the Celebration Town Hall Facebook, but whoever posted I think a nice acknowledgement post this morning, I just want to go ahead and say as one, I appreciate that. So just want to send that out and say thank you. And with that, I'll take your
JR is listening. Thank you, Kevin.
Was that a motion to adjourn?
There you go, David.
No, Kevin was making that motion as part of his comment.
No, then I'll make the motion to adjourn with that part.
I'll second your motion, Kevin.
Perfect. And thank you all for attending. And thank you to the residents for signing in also. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
You too.